Welcome to Shelf Talk, an opportunity for TPPL staff to share their love of reading and to promote some lesser-known books to our patrons and followers. My name is Robin, and this is my colleague Sue Bailey.
Hey.
As you know, Sue, I tend to read several books concurrently.
Right.
There are several advantages to this, one of which is the books form interesting relationships. And secondly, I have a book for every mood, every state of alertness, every state of mind.
Wow, great idea.
January is a month for transitions, for looking backward and looking forward. Three of my selections happen to involve a backward glance. The first two involve parent-child relationships, and the third a longer backward glance to past generations. My first book is Anne Fadiman's The Wine Lover's Daughter. This is a memoir of her dad, Clifton Fadiman, told in terms of his connections to wine. Many of our older viewers will appreciate that Fadiman will remember Clifton Fadiman from his radio quiz show, Information Please, that aired in the 1940s. Fadiman was also an author and a serious reader who introduced aspirational readers to the classics through his lifetime reading plan, published in many editions over the years.
Okay.
More important for the purposes of this book is that he was a second-generation immigrant eager to escape his hyphenated American past. Wine, which belonged to the domain of the upper class, was one avenue for upward mobility. Ironically, though Anne Fadiman took after her dad in many ways, she never cultivated a taste of wine, and for this reason felt that she was a disappointment to him.
Okay. Wow, that sounds really interesting. Robin, I'm really curious about where Mr. Fadiman is from.
Fadiman is a second-generation American
second generation.
immigrant.
Okay, gotcha.
His parents were from Ukraine and Russia, and they immigrated to Brooklyn, where he grew up.
Okay. Oh, I think
And
that's
then
great.
he later moved to parts of New York, Los Angeles, and I think retired to Florida.
Okay. And I think it's pretty ironic, and his daughter didn't follow in his footsteps in terms of, being a wine lover or connoisseur, but obviously she's written a great book. So thanks. That sounds
Exactly.
great.
My second book, or my second parent memoir, is another dad memoir. It's called An Odyssey, with the subtitle of A Father, a Son, and an Epic by Daniel Mendelsohn. Daniel Mendelsohn is a professor of classics at Bard College in New York, and his dad, at the age of 81, decided to take his son's class on Homer's Odyssey. So the book is actually structured around Homer's Odyssey, but it explains the author's relationship to his dad and to grandparents in terms of the Odyssey, drawing upon certain plot points. You may remember, those of you who read the Odyssey at some point, that one continuing motif throughout Homer's Odyssey is the relationship of the hero, Odysseus, to his father Laertes and son Telemachus, both of whom Odysseus leaves behind on the island of Ithaca when he goes off to fight the Trojan War. I think this book would appeal to anyone who would be interested in a creative reimagining of Homer's Odyssey, or anyone who's trying to make sense of their relationship to the parents.
That sounds great too. For a lot of us, it's been a long time since we read Homer, but I think this is a great way to maybe get in touch with some of the classics. So thanks.
And this book is the third of my relative books. It reaches back a little farther into the past than my first two memoirs, called It's All Relative by A.J. Jacobs. Some of you may be familiar with A.J. Jacobs because he tends to write the same kind of book again and again. I call these quest books. He sets up some kind of artificial challenge, like reading the entire Encyclopedia Britannica in one calendar year, or making himself the guinea pig in medical experiments, or a book which my friend Nell recommends, A Year of Living Biblically. He tries to emulate all of the rules and regulations of the Old Testament for a year.
Wow, that sounds super interesting.
And in this book, the quest that he sets up for himself is to create the world's biggest family reunion and to exceed the world's largest family reunion as recorded in the Guinness Book of World Records. So it's kind of a fun book, a silly book, something that's easy to pick up and put down. I talked about reading different books in different states of mind. This is the kind of thing you might want to read one chapter before you fall off to sleep. It's by no means a manual to how to do your genealogy, although there is an appendix at the end of the book, giving you some good recommendations about best websites, which ones are free, which ones are fee-based, and so forth. But it's more an overview of all the different genealogical tools and forums that are out there. He does talk about 23andMe, which I know a couple staff members have gotten involved in, sending away a cheek swab and getting your genetic profile. So in a way, he kind of puts the gene into genealogy. I really enjoy this book.
Oh, I think this sounds wonderful. I'd love to read this book. Genealogy and checking into your family tree is, very much a trend right now. Actually, probably more than a trend. And a lot of folks are doing those genealogy, are doing those tests, DNA tests, I should say. And my mom is doing one, and I think she would really enjoy this book. So thanks, Robin.
Excellent.
Sounds
I hope
great.
she'll share her research with you so that you don't have to reinvent the family wheel.
There you go.
Or should I
know,
say the
right?
daily wheel?
Right, for sure.
This book, The Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning, also fits into my January theme in that many of us at the beginning of a given calendar year make resolutions, lose weight, work out more, clean house, and so forth. This is a very popular book, in part, I think, because of the title. I mean, who would not want to read a book with this title? So just want to unpack this for you a little bit because I think it's a bit of a puzzlement to people. The speaks for itself. Gentle because the author is not really bossy. She wants you to go about the process of decluttering in a gradual fashion without really setting deadlines. Art because home economics is either an art and a science or both. And Swedish because the author herself is a Swede and the book was translated from the Swedish. I think the most puzzling part for most people is the concept of death cleaning. And what this is all about is a kind of consideration or compassion for those who will follow you, those who will walk into your apartment or home after you have left this planet and become responsible for deciding what to do with mom's stuff. So she does give some useful tips. One that I found a little bit surprising is that she addresses the issue of what to do with your pets when you are soon to leave the planet. So the art of Swedish death cleaning deals not only with our inanimate stuff, but with our animate stuff, our beloved pets.
Oh, of course. Wow, I can't wait to read this book. I've heard about it. You're right, a lot of people are talking about it. I think that, my interest has always been in downsizing. You already know that I was thinking of building a tiny home at one point.
Yes.
So this fits right in with that. But I have to say, I think this is a great idea, so much so that at the library we will be hosting a program in the summer on this very topic. One of our great presenters, Jeannie Rapolo, will be here, and she'll be talking about this exact concept. So if you're interested, maybe check out the book and then come to the program. So thanks, Robin.
Thank you. A great tip about the program. And you said maybe a morning in August?
Possibly, yes. We're still working on the logistics, but Jeannie should be here, I'm thinking, on a Monday morning in August to do this program at 11 o'clock. But check our newsletter for that, yeah.
Sorry for speaking over you. One little postscript about this book. Yeah. Many people may remember the life-changing magic of
Tidying Up.
Tidying Up
right,
by Marie
right.
Kondo. One of the aspects of that book that I found peculiar was the notion of having to talk to your socks before you got rid of them.
Did you say talk to your socks?
I did.
Just
I think the idea was to express gratitude to your garments before you gave them to Goodwill or recycled the fabric at H&M or however it is you dispose of your clothing. So this is a little bit less maybe quirky or eccentric in its recommendations. And one tip that I found invaluable and what has been a stumbling point for me as I've tried to downsize and declutter my apartment is don't start with the photographs and the letters because those take you down memory lane and you'll never escape.
Good point.
So
good to know.
Those can be done last. They don't take up much space even if you don't get to them before you die. Your children would probably appreciate some of those photos and letters.
Oh, absolutely. This is amazing. Thanks, Robin.
The final book ties in somewhat with my January theme in that it reviews the first year of the Trump administration from January of 2017 to January of 2018. I'm really not going to say much about this in part because there are a lot of people on the hold list. I don't want to issue any spoilers, but I guess my overwhelming feeling is that any book about current events is already passé by the time it's published between hardcovers. So the news cycle continues to spin. There are already so many developments that, in a sense, this really feels like a look backward and not a look at the present time.
I see. Okay. Well, thank you. That sounds really good too. You know, this whole concept that you introduced at the beginning of this segment, you know, was on the idea of reading concurrently, and I think that's a fascinating topic in itself. I've been reading a lot about it lately in the news and on some of our book sites, and I love the idea. I think it really works at a lot of levels. You know, I mentioned to you earlier, I sometimes can't fall asleep like a lot of people at night, and I like to read something that's a little more calming, but, you know, in a sense that limits me to what I check out and, you know, what I, you know, branch out to. So the idea of being able to read many books at one time is an awesome idea. It's a great tip for our patrons, especially. You know, we've got a lot of books here at the library, so, you know, you can come and check out a bunch, give them a try. Would you have anything else to say about that?
Sure. It's funny when something that I've been doing for most of my life, you say it's trending. For
I
me,
know,
it just feels like a habit.
Well, that's
But
great.
while we're talking about my habits, I will share somewhat of a dirty little secret, is that I don't necessarily finish all the books that I start.
Oh,
For
okay.
me, part of the definition of being an adult is that once I've gotten out of what I want out of a book, I can set it aside. So
Right.
these being my January books, I'm eager to turn the page and move into my February reading.
I think that's a great idea. You know, no guilt. You
Exactly.
know, check out what you want and give them a try. You know, one last point too. These are all nonfiction. You know, so you're reading 5 nonfiction books. What about fiction?
It's
You
true.
don't have any here on the table, Robin.
I do read fiction as well. The patrons who attended my January book discussion of Road Ends will know that I am an enthusiastic reader of fiction, but as far as fitting into my concurrent reading plan, I would say I tend to read only one fiction book at a time. It's very easy with books like this on diverse subject matters
Sure.
set in different time periods and different geographical locations to keep them all straight, but I'm afraid if I had 2 novels going, you know, the Johns and the Peters and the Marys would get mixed up with the Jills and so forth, and I might not be able to keep everything straight.
Sure.
So again, I do read fiction, less than nonfiction, but at least I have one fiction book going all the time.
Okay. Wow, that's great ideas. Thank you, Robin. Wonderful.
Thank you, Sue.
Yeah.
I'll be looking forward to hearing what you're reading next month.
Okay, thanks.